I raised my niece for 8 years while her mother was gone. The day her mother came back, she called me just the aunt and rewrote history like I never existed. 8 years of school pickups, sick nights, first days, and birthday cakes. Then her mother walked back in and I became a stranger. My name is Lauren Nakamura. I am 37 years old. And I raised a child who no longer remembers that I did. Not completely. Not honestly. She remembers something. But the story has been rewritten. Quietly. Carefully. The way you repaint a wall so no one can see what was written there before. I raised my niece Chloe from the time she was 5 years old until she was 13. 8 years. 8 years of school mornings and sick days and homework battles and grocery runs and parent-teacher conferences and birthday cakes made from scratch because she was allergic to the dyes in the box mixes. 8 years of being the person she called when she was scared. The person she ran to when something went wrong. The person who sat outside her bedroom door and talked to her through the wood when she was too upset to open it. And then her biological mother came back. Sober. Remarried. Stable. Everything she hadn't been when she disappeared. The court gave Chloe back to her. And within 6 months, I had become just the aunt she used to live with. I want to tell you this story, not for sympathy, not to villainize a woman who fought hard to get sober and rebuild her life, but because someone has to say the truth out loud, because Chloe deserves to know the truth, even if she never reads this, even if she never asks. My sister Dana is 4 years younger than me. She is 33 now. Growing up, Dana was everything I was not. I was quiet, studious, careful. She was wild, magnetic, the kind of person who walked into a room and changed the temperature of it. Everyone loved Dana. She made you feel like the most interesting person in the world when her attention was on you. And she made you feel invisible when it wasn't. Our parents were good people. Working-class family in Southeast Portland. Dad drove a delivery truck. Mom worked at a dental office. They were steady, practical, not demonstrative people, but they were there. They showed up. That's what they knew how to do. Dana always wanted more than Portland could give her. She was restless from childhood. Too much energy for small rooms. At 16 she was sneaking out. At 17 she was running with people 10 years older than her. At 18 she was gone for weeks at a time without calling. I went to Portland State, studied social work, then switched to accounting when I realized I needed something practical to pay rent. Graduated, got a job at a mid-sized firm, built something quiet and manageable in mine. Dana got pregnant at 24. Chloe's father was a man named Ryan who I met exactly twice. He was charming in the way that unstable people sometimes are, all warmth and no follow-through. He was gone before Chloe turned 2. Dana said he moved to California. I don't know if that was true. For the first 3 years of Chloe's life, Dana tried. I believe that. I saw her try. She had a 1-bedroom apartment. She kept it clean enough. She took Chloe to the pediatrician. She showed up to my parents' house for Sunday dinners with this beautiful, chubby, wide-eyed little girl on her hip, and she looked proud. She looked like a mother. But the nights were harder than the days. And the friends she kept were the wrong kind. And the substances that had always lived at the edges of her life moved to the center. By the time Chloe was 4, Dana was unreliable. She'd cancel plans, show up late to pick Chloe up from daycare, leave her with whoever was around while she disappeared for weekends. My parents helped when they could. But Dad had a bad back that was getting worse, and Mom was starting to show early signs of the anxiety disorder that would later become harder to manage. They were not young grandparents. They were not equipped for what Dana was becoming. I started stepping in, watching Chloe on weekends, picking her up from daycare when Dana couldn't make it, keeping her overnight when the overnight stretched into 2 days, then 3. Then one afternoon in October, when Chloe was 5 years and 2 months old, Dana dropped her at my apartment with a purple suitcase and a garbage bag full of stuffed animals. I just need a little time, Dana said. I just need to get myself together. It'll be a few weeks, maybe a month. Chloe stood in my doorway holding a stuffed rabbit named Benny that was missing one eye. Dana kissed her on the top of her head and left. She did not come back for 8 years. I stood there in my doorway for a moment after Dana's car disappeared around the corner. Chloe was still looking at the space where the car had been. Not crying, just looking. The way a child looks when they are still processing whether what just happened was real. I knelt down beside her so we were the same height. "Are you hungry?" I asked. She turned and looked at me. Brown eyes, Dana's eyes, enormous in her small face. "A little," she said. "Good," I said. "I made soup." That was how it started. With soup and a small girl and a one-eyed rabbit. Not with any dramatic declaration, not with a plan, not with a full understanding of what I was stepping into. Just soup and a quiet Tuesday evening and a 5-year-old who needed someone to be there. I called my parents that night after Chloe was asleep. I kept my voice low. She left her, my mother said. She said a few weeks. My father was quiet for a moment. Then, do you need help? Not yet, I said. Let me figure out what this looks like first. What it looked like in those first days was careful and tentative on both sides. Chloe was a polite child. Eerily polite for a 5-year-old, the way children are polite when they have learned that adults are unpredictable, and that manners are a kind of armor. She said please and thank you without being reminded. She cleaned up after herself without being asked. She was quiet in a way that 5-year-olds are not supposed to be quiet. She did not ask for her mother for the first 3 days. On the 4th day, sitting at the breakfast table, she said without looking up from her toast, "When is Mama coming back?" "Soon," I said, because I believed it, because I had to believe something. She nodded and ate her toast and did not ask again for a while. The first few months she called sometimes. Erratically. A 2-hour phone call at midnight where she was crying and promising to get into treatment. Then 3 weeks of silence. Then a 10-minute call where she sounded hollow and far away. Then nothing for 2 months. I filed for temporary legal guardianship when Chloe had been with me for 6 months. My parents supported it. Dana, when I finally reached her, didn't object. She didn't do much of anything. I enrolled Chloe in kindergarten. I listed myself as guardian, emergency contact, and primary caregiver. I met her teacher, Ms. Okonkwo, who was warm and perceptive and immediately understood the situation without my saying much at all. She watched out for Chloe all year. Chloe, for her part, was a remarkable child. She was quiet at first, in the way that children are quiet when they are waiting to see if a place is safe. She watched me from doorways. She asked permission for things no 5-year-old should feel she has to ask permission for. Can I have a glass of water? Can I turn on the TV? Can I use the bathroom? The first time she climbed into my lap without being invited, I didn't move. I barely breathed. I didn't want to startle her. She put her head against my shoulder and said nothing. We sat like that for a long time. That was when I understood that this was not temporary. I want to be honest about what those years cost me. I was 29 when Chloe came to live with me. I was dating someone. A man named Michael who was kind and patient and who genuinely tried to be part of what our little household was becoming. But he had not signed up for an instant family. We lasted another year. The breakup was quiet and sad, and I don't blame him. My social life contracted. My savings contracted. I had been putting money away for a down payment on a house, and instead I bought a bigger apartment, 2 bedrooms so Chloe could have her own room, and spent those years putting money toward school clothes and field trips and a second-hand bicycle I painted with her in the parking lot on a Saturday afternoon because she wanted it to be purple with silver stars. I hired a babysitter for 2 evenings a week at first so I could work late when tax season demanded it. Then I adjusted my schedule so I could always be home before 5. Then I stopped taking on weekend projects altogether because Chloe had soccer on Saturday mornings and I was not going to be the adult who wasn't there. My colleagues thought I was a parent. I never corrected them. It seemed like more explanation than the situation required. I did not resent any of it. I want to be clear about that. I did not walk around feeling like a martyr. I loved Chloe. Not with the love you feel for a niece you see at holidays. With the love you feel for a person who is yours. Who you are responsible for. Who you worry about at 2 in the morning when they have a fever that won't break. There was a night when Chloe was 7. She had strep throat and an ear infection at the same time, and she was miserable, burning up, crying because her throat hurt too much to swallow. I sat beside her in her bed with a cool cloth and a popsicle, and I sang the same 3 songs on rotation for 2 hours until she finally fell asleep. I sat there in the dark after, her small hand still curled around 2 of my fingers, and I thought, this is everything. This right here is everything. I called Dana when I could. I sent her photos of Chloe. Not to make her feel guilty, or maybe partly to make her feel guilty, I'm being honest, but because she was still her mother. She was still supposed to be finding her way back. Some years she called on Chloe's birthday. Some years she didn't. The year Chloe turned 8, she sat by the phone all morning waiting. Dana didn't call until 9 that night. Chloe was asleep. I let the voicemail take it. In the morning I didn't tell Chloe about the call until she asked, and then I told her that her mom had called to say happy birthday and that she loved her, which was mostly true. Chloe said, "Why didn't she call when I was awake?" I didn't have a good answer. She probably got the time zones mixed up, I said. Chloe looked at me with the expression that children get when they know an adult is protecting them from something and they are deciding whether to accept the protection. She accepted it. She was 8. My parents were deeply involved in Chloe's life during those years. Sunday dinners at their house every week. Summer weeks at my dad's sister's cabin on the coast. Grandparent moments, grandmother's hands teaching her to roll out pie crust, my dad teaching her to play cribbage, sitting at the kitchen table together for entire Saturday afternoons with the cards and the wooden board he had carved himself years before I was born. Chloe called my parents Grandma and Grandpa. She called me Auntie Lauren. She had never called me Mom. I had not asked her to. She knew the structure of our family, as much as a child can know such a thing. She knew her mother was out there somewhere. She knew we were waiting for her. I had not legally adopted Chloe. I have asked myself many times whether that was the right decision. The truth is that Dana kept telling me she was getting better. Every few months there would be a call where she sounded clearer, more present. She'd tell me she was in a program. She'd tell me she was working a job. She'd tell me she was going to be ready soon to take Chloe back. And I believed her, or I wanted to believe her, and I could not bring myself to make a legal move that would close that door permanently. I thought I was being generous. I thought I was holding space for Dana's recovery. I thought I was doing the right thing. I was also afraid of what the fight would look like if Dana came back and I had legally severed her rights. I was afraid of making an enemy of my sister. I made myself vulnerable instead. When Chloe was in 6th grade, she started asking more questions about her mother. The way adolescents do. Trying to construct an identity, trying to understand where they came from, trying to fill in the gaps. I answered carefully. I told her that her mom had struggled. That addiction was a disease, not a choice. That Dana loved her even when she couldn't be there. I said every generous thing I could find to say because Chloe deserved to have something good to hold on to. I did not tell her that her mother had missed 4 of her 8 birthdays. I did not tell her that there had been stretches of 2 years when I could not reach Dana at all. I did not tell her about the time I had driven to a shelter in Northeast Portland because someone had given me a tip that Dana was there. And I had sat in the parking lot for 40 minutes trying to decide whether to go in, and then I had driven home and cried in my car before going back upstairs to make Chloe dinner. I protected Dana's image with everything I had, and in doing so, I think I made it easier for what came later. I told myself I was protecting her. I told myself that Chloe deserved an intact idea of her mother, that she could make her own judgments when she was older, that it was not my place to hand her a broken version of Dana when Dana had not yet had the chance to repair herself. What I did not consider, or what I considered and pushed aside, was that the generous story I was telling left no space for the truth of what had actually happened. It left Chloe without the full picture of what her years with me had been. It left her with a mother who was frozen in an idea. Someone who loved her but struggled. Someone who was out there getting better. Rather than a woman who had disappeared and left her 5-year-old with one suitcase and an aunt who then rearranged her entire life to catch her. Chloe didn't know what I had given up. I had been careful to make sure she didn't. Children should not carry the weight of adult sacrifice. I still believe that. But there is a cost to that silence, and I have been paying it ever since. Dana came back when Chloe was 13. She sent me a letter first. A real letter handwritten on plain white paper. She had been sober for 2 years. She had completed a residential treatment program, and then an outpatient program. She had met a man named Greg at a recovery meeting. He was a civil engineer. They had gotten married 8 months ago. They were living in Scottsdale, Arizona. She had a job. A real one. She was a bookkeeper for a landscaping company. She was going to meetings every week. She had a sponsor. She had a life. She wanted to know Chloe. She wanted to take Chloe back. I read that letter 6 times. I sat with it for 3 days before I called her. When I heard her voice, I cried. She sounded like Dana, the real Dana from 20 years ago, the one with warmth and spark and real presence. She sounded like herself. I know what I did, she said. I know I can never get that time back. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to let me be her mother. You are her mother, I said. You've always been her mother. I know she's been with you. I know what you did for her. Lauren, I know. What I thought was, do you really know what I did? What I said was, I just want what's best for Chloe. We agreed to reintroduce Dana slowly. A video call first. Then a visit to Portland. Then time in Scottsdale over the summer. Chloe's first video call with Dana was on a Sunday evening in March. I set up my laptop on the kitchen table and told Chloe she didn't have to say anything she didn't want to say. I told her she could end the call whenever she wanted. I told her I would be right in the next room. Then I went to the next room and listened to the sound of my niece talking to her mother for the first time in any real way. Dana was warm, careful. She didn't make promises she couldn't keep. She asked Chloe questions about school, about her friends, about what she liked. Chloe answered in short sentences at first, then longer ones. I heard her laugh once. A real laugh surprised out of her. I pressed my back against the wall and breathed. This was the right thing. I knew it was. Chloe deserved her mother. She deserved Dana whole and present and sober. I had always known this was the goal. This was what all those years of telling Chloe that her mom loved her were supposed to build toward. I knew it was right and I was terrified. Dana came to Portland in April. She and Greg stayed at a hotel downtown. I met her for coffee the morning before she was going to spend the day with Chloe, and I sat across from my sister for the first time in years and looked at her and felt about 14 different things simultaneously. She was thin in a healthy way now, not the hollow way she had been before. She had crow's feet at the corners of her eyes and her hair was longer, darker. She looked like someone who had come back from somewhere difficult and was still a little quiet from the journey. We talked for 2 hours. About recovery. About Greg, who seemed genuinely like a good man. About what she wanted for Chloe. She said she knew she had a long way to go. She said she understood that Chloe's primary attachment was to me. She said she wasn't trying to replace what I had built. She just wanted to be part of Chloe's life. I believed her. Sitting there, looking at my sister, I believed every word. The day she spent with Chloe went well. Chloe came home quiet but not upset. She sat at the kitchen table and I put a snack in front of her and she said, "She's different than I expected." Different how? Calmer. She really listened to me. I nodded. Good different. Chloe thought about it. I don't know yet, she said. But maybe good different. By June, the court process had begun. Dana filed for primary custody. She had the documentation, 2 years of sobriety, a stable income, a husband with his own stable income, a 4-bedroom house in Scottsdale, letters from her therapist and her sponsor, clean drug tests. I had 8 years of parenting with no legal adoption. My lawyer was honest with me. The courts favor biological parents when they can demonstrate rehabilitation and stability. Your guardianship is temporary. It was always temporary. You didn't formalize it. I didn't formalize it because I didn't want to take Dana's parental rights. I know. And now that's working against you. The judge was not unkind. She acknowledged the work I had done. She acknowledged that Chloe was clearly healthy, well-adjusted, and clearly loved. She said it was evident that I had been an exceptional caregiver. And then she awarded primary custody to Dana. Chloe would finish the school year in Portland. She would move to Scottsdale at the end of July. She would spend school breaks with me. She would call and video chat regularly. I sat in that courtroom and did not cry. I had decided beforehand that I was not going to cry. Chloe was in the hallway with the guardian ad litem, and I was not going to let her come back in and see me shattered. I waited until I was in my car in the parking garage. Then I sat there for 20 minutes. Then I drove home and made dinner. The last 6 weeks Chloe spent in Portland were both the best and hardest of my life. We did everything. We went to the coast. We ate at all her favorite restaurants. We had a movie marathon weekend where we watched every film she had loved as a small child, animated ones that had not aged well but that we watched anyway, Chloe half embarrassed and half delighted by her younger self's taste. We went to the mall photo booth and took pictures for strips making faces. I kept 2 strips and gave her 2. We went back to the elementary school she had attended, just to walk past it, and Chloe stood at the fence looking at the playground equipment. It was summer so no one was there. She pointed at the monkey bars and said, "I broke my wrist on those in 2nd grade." She said it with the nostalgic authority of someone telling an old story, and I realized she was already doing it. Already turning her childhood into something to look back at. Already standing slightly outside of it. It made her seem older than 13. It made my chest ache in a specific way I didn't have words for. We had dinner at my parents' house 3 times in those last weeks. My dad grilled salmon each time because it was Chloe's favorite, and he is not a man who expresses love in words, but who expresses it with the care he puts into a meal. My mother held Chloe's hand at the table at one point without explanation, just reached over and held it, and Chloe let her and didn't look surprised. They have that language between them. They have always had it. I did not tell Chloe what any of it was costing me. I kept the hard things for after she was asleep, or for my morning runs, Or for the phone calls with my friend Simone where I could say the real things out loud to someone who had known me long enough to understand them. I kept the face I had decided to show. Steady, warm, ready, because that is what Chloe needed from me. Not my grief, not my fear. Just the certainty that I was still there, that I would remain there, that nothing about my love for her required her physical proximity to continue. I made her a book before she left. A small one, spiral-bound from the print shop on Belmont. Every page had a photo from a different year of her life. Kindergarten, first grade, the beach, the purple bike, Halloween costumes, the science fair solar system, middle school graduation, her in a paper cap and gown grinning. Underneath each photo I had written a sentence or two. Not sentimental ones, just honest ones. What she had been like that year. What she had loved. One thing that had made me proud of her. I gave it to her the morning she left. She held it for a moment without opening it. "I'll look at it on the plane," she said. "Okay," I said. She texted me from the plane. Just, "I'm looking at it now." And then, "Thank you for everything, Auntie Lauren." I sat with that text for a long time. It felt like a beginning and an ending at the same time. The night before she left, we sat on the balcony of my apartment. We could see the lights of the city from there. And it was a warm night, one of those rare Portland summer nights that actually feel like summer. Chloe said, "I don't want you to think I'm choosing her over you." I said, "This isn't a choice you're making, baby. This is just what's happening. And it's okay." "It's not really okay." "No," I said. "It's not really. But we're going to be okay." She leaned her head on my shoulder. She was 13 and almost as tall as me. This girl I had picked up from the floor of my doorway at 5 years old holding a one-eyed rabbit. She smelled like the shampoo she had used since she was 10 because she was particular about her shampoo, and I had never switched brands on her. "I love you, Auntie Lauren." "I love you, Chloe. Every single day." The first 2 months were okay. She called me regularly. She texted about school, about her new bedroom which was enormous by her standards, about the neighborhood pool, about a girl named Priya at her new school who seemed promising as a potential friend. She told me she missed Portland. She told me she missed my cooking. She told me she missed the sound of rain. Dana was by all accounts doing well. She was home when Chloe got back from school. She was attentive. She and Greg were not flashy people despite their comparative wealth. They were tidy and routine-oriented, which Chloe, raised in the accountant's household I had made, actually appreciated. I was glad. I was genuinely glad. Then things started to shift. The calls got shorter, spaced further apart. When I asked how she was doing, the answers became vague in the way that teenagers' answers to adults become vague when there is something they don't want to examine. I told myself it was just the normal adolescent pulling away. I told myself she was building a new life and that was good. I told myself not to cling. I texted her on a Tuesday in October just to say I had seen a dog at the farmer's market that looked exactly like the dog we had always said we wanted but never got. I sent her a photo. She sent back a laughing emoji. No other response. I told myself that was fine. My birthday is November 18th. Chloe had never forgotten my birthday. Not once in 8 years. She had made me cards. She had called me at midnight the year she turned 12 and discovered she could stay up until midnight. She had, the previous year, saved her own allowance to buy me a small silver bracelet that she presented in a paper bag she had decorated herself with marker drawings. November 18th came and went. No call. No text. A day later a text that said, "Happy late birthday. Sorry I forgot," followed by a balloon emoji. I stared at that text for a long time. I responded, "Thank you, sweetheart. Means a lot." I did not say anything else. My mother called me that evening. "Dana called her," she said quietly. "What?" "Dana called Chloe on your birthday. She and Greg took her out for dinner. They were out all evening. I don't think Chloe thought about the day." I sat very still. "That might have been a coincidence," I said. "It might have been," my mother said. She did not sound like she believed it. In December, Chloe came back to Portland for the school break. It was supposed to be 2 weeks. She was here for 10 days before Dana called to say they had booked a trip to Cabo for the last 4 days and could they adjust the schedule just this once. Chloe stood in my living room looking at the floor when she told me. "It's okay," I said. "Go to Cabo. Have a good time." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She looked up at me and I saw something in her face that I did not recognize. Something a little like relief. Like she had expected a fight and was grateful not to get one. And underneath the relief, something that looked like guilt. She hugged me before she left. It was a good hug, long and real. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," I said. Every single day. The conversation that finally broke something in me happened in February. My cousin Renata got married. It was a small, warm wedding, family and close friends, held at a venue in Northeast Portland. My parents came, my aunt and uncle, cousins, and Chloe flew in for the weekend because Renata had specifically asked for her to be there. Renata had been around during Chloe's childhood. She loved Chloe. Chloe came. She was 14 now, taller again, with her hair in a style she had chosen herself, something with braids that I thought was beautiful and that she clearly felt confident in. She was lovely at the wedding. She danced with my dad, who was slower on his feet than he used to be but who held his ground on the dance floor with dignity. She took photos with my mom. She ate the coconut cake and had seconds. And then she introduced me to two of Renata's friends who were her own age, teenage daughters of the bridesmaids, girls she had been chatting with near the dessert table. She gestured at me and said, "This is Lauren. She's just my aunt who I used to live with." Just my aunt. Used to live with. 11 words. 8 years. I smiled at the girls. I said it was lovely to meet them. I excused myself to get some water from the bar. I stood with my back to the room for a moment, holding a glass of ice water, and I made a decision. I was not going to make a scene at Renata's wedding. I found Renata and hugged her and told her it had been a beautiful ceremony. I said goodbye to my parents and kissed my mom on the cheek. I found my coat and I walked to my car and I drove home. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Just my aunt who I used to live with. I thought about every school morning, every fever, every nightmare she had knocked on my door about in the middle of the night, standing in my doorway in the glow of the hallway nightlight, needing to be let in, every argument about homework, every conversation about the girls at school who were unkind, every grocery run where I let her pick out one special thing and watched her deliberate over the choice for longer than any cereal or granola bar warranted, because she took the privilege seriously, because she had been a child who understood the value of small good things. Just my aunt who she used to live with. I wrote her a letter that night. Not an angry one. I was very deliberate about that. I was not going to punish her. She was 14 and she was trying to build a relationship with her mother, and somewhere in the building of that relationship, she had been handed a story about who I was and what our years together meant. I wrote her the truth. Not cruelly. Not as an accusation. I told her that I loved her. That I would always love her. That nothing that had happened or would happen changed that. And I told her that our years together were real. That I had been there. That the rabbit named Benny was still in a box in my closet, because I had kept everything. That the mall photo strips were still in a frame on my bookshelf. That I was still her person, even if she couldn't call me that right now. I told her I was not asking for anything. I just needed her to know. She responded 4 days later. The text read, "Mom says you have a hard time letting go, and that this letter is exactly the kind of thing she's been talking about. She says you were controlling when I was little and I deserve to see that now that I'm older. She says I should focus on my real family and limit contact with people who make me feel guilty. I need some space. Please don't text me for a while." I read that text once. I put my phone face down on the kitchen table. I sat there until it was dark outside. I want to talk about what it is to lose a child you raised but did not birth. There is no category for it. There is no language that other people immediately understand. When I tell people what happened, the first thing they often say is, "Well, she's not really your daughter." And I understand why they say it. Legally, factually, biologically, she is not. I have never contested that. Dana is her mother. Dana carried her. Dana gave birth to her. Dana loved her in whatever fractured way she was capable of loving, even in the years she was gone. But I made her lunches for 8 years. I held her hair back when she was sick. I taught her to ride a bike. I stayed up until 2 in the morning helping her build a model of the solar system for a science fair. I talked her through her first panic attack when she was 11, sitting on the cold tile of the school bathroom floor, on the phone with her until she could breathe again. I was her mother. Not in the legal sense. Not in the biological sense. In the daily, ordinary, irreplaceable sense. And that has been taken from me. Quietly. Gradually. Through a process of narrative revision that I was not present to defend against. I do not believe Chloe is cruel. I want to say that very clearly. She is 14. She is a child who spent 8 years longing for her mother, and who has finally been given something that looks like what she always wanted. She is going to hold on to it. She is going to protect it. She is going to believe what she has to believe in order to make the story of her life make sense. And if the story requires that I become smaller in it, that I become someone controlling, someone who kept her away, someone toxic, then that is the story she will tell for now. That is not her fault. She is 14. The responsibility for what has been done lies elsewhere. I am 37 years old. My apartment is the same apartment I moved into when Chloe was 6. I got a good deal on the rent, and I have stayed because the neighborhood is familiar and the building manager knows me by name, and because I told myself for years that I should stay somewhere Chloe felt was home. Her room is still her room. I have not turned it into anything else. I am not sure when I will. My parents are getting older. My dad's back is worse. My mom's anxiety is better managed but always present. I spend time with them on Sundays still. We talk about Chloe sometimes. My mother says things like, "Give it time. She'll come back to you." My father says less, but he pats my hand across the dinner table in a way that tells me he understands more than he says. I have not reached out to Dana. I have thought about it. I have thought about calling her and asking her directly, woman to woman, what she has told our daughter about me and why. I have thought about what that conversation would look like and whether there is any version of it that ends well. I think there is not. Not now. Not yet. Maybe not ever. There is a version of the future I try to hold on to. Chloe is older in this version. Maybe 20. Maybe 25. Old enough to have lived enough of her own life that other people's versions of her childhood no longer hold the same power. Old enough to have asked her own questions. To have looked at the photo strips from the mall booth still tucked in her wallet or her memory box or wherever she has kept them, and to have felt something that makes her pick up the phone. In that version, she calls me. We are awkward for a few minutes. And then we are not. And then we are just Lauren and Chloe again, in the only way we have ever known how to be. I try to hold on to that version. On the difficult nights, I take out the photo strips. There are 4 photos on each strip and we are making faces in all of them, the 2 of us crammed into the little curtain booth in the mall, her at 12 and me at 34. In the last photo we are both laughing so hard we are not really making a face anymore. We are just laughing. I keep that one turned toward me on the shelf. The rabbit named Benny is still in the box in the closet, one-eyed, worn from being held. I am not ready to do anything with him yet. There are things I know to be true. I know that I did the right thing by taking Chloe in when she had nowhere to go. I know that I did the right thing by supporting her relationship with Dana when Dana came back. I know that I probably should have legally formalized things when I had the chance, and that my failure to do so came from love and from the wrong kind of hope, and that I will carry that as a lesson even though the learning of it has been painful. I know that I could not have loved Chloe more than I did. That there is no version of those 8 years in which I held back or protected myself or gave anything less than everything I had. I know that she is not lost to me forever. Children grow. Teenagers become adults. Adults develop the capacity to hold more than one story at a time. She will grow. She will look back. She will have her own children someday, maybe, and there will be a moment when she understands what I understood that night on the balcony watching the city lights. That love is not a feeling, it is a practice. It is the ordinary work of every ordinary day. She will remember. Maybe not everything. Maybe not in the way I remember it. But she will remember something true. I hold on to that. I am rebuilding now. Not my life exactly, my life was always intact even in the years of raising her. But something in myself that got quieter during the last year. Something that had been waiting and hoping in a particular direction and has had to relearn how to wait and hope in a different one. I have started running in the mornings. Small thing. But I am outside before the city fully wakes up, and there is something in that hour that belongs entirely to me. I adopted a dog 3 months ago, a 7-year-old beagle mix named Henry who was in the shelter longer than he should have been because he is not a puppy and people pass over the middle-aged dogs. He sleeps at the foot of my bed. He is good company. I called my friend Simone last week and we had dinner and talked for 3 hours about everything except what had been hurting me, and then at the end we talked about that too and she listened without trying to fix it, which is the best kind of listening. I am doing the things that people do when they are rebuilding. Chloe is out there, in a house with a pool in Scottsdale, Arizona. She is doing her homework and fighting with her mother about her curfew and making friends with Priya and probably eating food that is not what I would have made but that she is eating and being fed and being clothed and being kept. She is loved, even if the love she is surrounded by has decided that I am a threat to it. She is loved. That has to be enough for now. I have not told this story for revenge. I have not told it to make Dana look bad. She is a person who fought a long fight against something that nearly destroyed her, and she won, and I do not take that away from her. I have told it because it happened, because I was there, because someone should say out loud that the years I gave were real, that the work was real, that the love was real, and that it does not disappear just because someone has decided it is inconvenient to acknowledge it. 8 years. Every single day. I was there. And I would do it again. Have you ever poured everything you had into raising a child who wasn't biologically yours, only to be erased when it was no longer convenient? Have you ever been rewritten out of someone's history? Have you ever been called just something you were so much more than? Leave your story in the comments. You are not alone. And what you gave was real, even when the people you gave it to can't see it yet. If you believe that 8 years of love cannot be undone by 8 months of revision, hit that like button and subscribe. Because the truth doesn't disappear just because someone painted over it. And the people who were there, who showed up every ordinary day, deserve to be remembered. #I raised my niece.